Ooh. How's our memers doing today?
President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he was in office. Didn't get away with anything yet. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one. President Trump is practically and morally responsible.
Based. What's the takeaway from last night for Smooth Brains? Is the president too powerful now, or are we fine? Well, I think the two huge things that are going to have to be determined now in future litigation is one is going to be what counts as an official act. That's who the fuck knows, because I don't think the Supreme Court gave any guidance on that. No, that's probably going to be the big one. It's going to be what counts as an official act. And what's going to be the test for figuring out if the president has like acted in an official capacity or not? Is the lower court going to have to determine that now? So here's what of the four things that were brought up in the major opinion. The conversation that happened between Donald Trump and his attorney general. Well, maybe I'll finish reading this first, because I've only got 2,000 people in here. I'll go over it.
This is the last year of a lame duck president, and if Ted Cruz or Donald Trump get to be president, they've all asked us not to confirm or take up a selection by President Obama. So if a vacancy occurs in their last year of their first term, guess what? You will use their words against them. I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right. We're setting a precedent here today, Republicans are, that in the last year, at least of a lame duck 8-year term, I would say it's going to be a 4-year term, that you're not going to fill a vacancy of the Supreme Court based on what we're doing here today.
So unbelievable.
That's going to be the new rule. When y'all change the rules about appellate judges and district court judges to get your way, I thought it was a really abuse of power. And what you have done here is you've made the caucuses, the Republican and Democratic caucuses, are now not going to have to reach across the aisle when it comes to appellate judges and district court judges to get input from us, or we get input from you. So what does that mean? That we're going to pick the most hard-ass people we can find and dare somebody in the conference to vote against that person. You're going to have the most liberal members of your caucus pushing you to pick the most liberal judges, because you don't need to have to reach across the aisle to get any of our input. And we'll do the same. So over time, the judiciary is going to be more ideologically driven, because the process in the Senate now does not require you to get outside your own party. So I'll be fighting talk radio when somebody on my side puts up a nut job, and they will. And I'll fight if I think they're truly a nut job. That's going to happen on your side, too.
Based. Has Lindsey Graham ever been married? I don't know, but I think he can get married now, right? Didn't the Supreme Court say that was okay? Did somebody say based? Lindsey Graham, 4 years later.
Any reasonable person could impose in terms of qualifications. I think you made every test in terms of disposition and character that the public could hope for in terms of having somebody sit at the table at the Supreme Court. You will be confirmed, God willing. You will have my full support. I see in you someone who's not only highly qualified to be in the court in every way possible, but somebody that has broken new ground in a positive way for the country. So what we will be doing now is go in closed session. The FBI evaluation will be presented to the committee. That's standard practice for every nominee. We will meet again here just in, where's the room? Dirksen G50. You will be with us. We do this for every nominee going back to Chairman Biden. And it is over. The hearing part is over. You can have 2 glasses of wine tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll defer to Senator Durbin if he wants to go first.
Yes, I would just like to finish my thought, then we'll defer to Senator Durbin. The hearing part is over. You acquitted yourself well. But the journey you're about to take is going to be challenging. It's going to be rewarding. And may God bless you in this endeavor. Senator Durbin.
Mr. Chairman.
How was that steam iron you got? I haven't even gotten to open it yet. Speaking of, hold on. Does this work? Let me check. Okay. Based. Or is it Bayzed? I don't actually know. Don't know. Don't give a fuck. It's Bayzed? How does that even make sense? Would you talk to peers outside of a show? Not at all.
But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you, but go home and go home in peace.
Just in case you weren't aware of it. When Trump was giving this speech,
Ladies and gentlemen.
legal in Wisconsin, meaning that this could be happening to our Constitution. Democrats have gotten away with.
There's no transcript on this video. I don't know why. So now we're painfully...
Election for people that tore down our nation. The weak Republicans, and that's it. I really believe it. I think I'm going to use it. Joe Biden said, I want to get rid of the America First policy. What virus and the scam of mail-in ballots. Democrats attempted. Don't forget when Romney got beat. Romney, did you see his? I wonder if he enjoyed his flight in last night. But when Romney got beaten, you know, he stands up like your more typical. Well, I'd like to congratulate the victor. The victor. Who is the victor, Mitt? I'd like to congratulate. You can go all the way back. You know, America is blessed with free and fair press. Our media is not free. It's not fair. It suppresses thought. It suppresses speech. And it's become the enemy of the people. It's become the enemy of the people. It's the biggest problem we have in this country. No third world countries would even attempt to do what we caught them doing. And you'll hear about that in just a few minutes. Republicans are...
I didn't catch this when I first listened to this speech because I didn't know what was being schemed. Somebody at the subreddit pointed this out, though. It was very interesting. Hold on.
Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. And we want to be so nice. We want to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people. And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over.
I don't think anybody knew really what this meant when he said this, because but I realize now, and going back and looking over this speech, he was explicitly calling for that. He's referring to the electorate scheme here. That's what he's doing. But nobody's even cheering because nobody actually even knows what this plot is. It wasn't publicized very much. I think there was a leak prior to the speech, like the Eastman memo, but nobody really knew. I didn't, at least. And it doesn't seem like it was getting much airplay for what the Eastman memo and everything was about. But this is him explicitly referring to that. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. And the idea was that Mike Pence was going to have to come through for us, meaning that Mike Pence was going to have to be the guy to toss the actual electorate slates and just count the ones that that Trump had the 7 different groups of people perjure themselves and say that they were the real electorate slates. Yeah, I didn't realize before that. So I didn't remember, but this is explicitly calling that out. That's hilarious and kind of sad, but
And only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching.
how would Pence change anything if he is lawfully bound to acknowledge the approved electors? What Eastman and Donald Trump hoped to do in his attempt to soft coup the government, what his goal was there was supposed to be 14 different slates of electors that show up for 7 different states. And Pence was supposed to feign ignorance and go, well, I don't know which ones are the real ones. There's supposed to be a small debate in the Senate over what the real ones are. And then Pence, I think after an hour, it's written in the Electoral Bullshit Act or whatever, has the ability to call time and say, sorry, guys, we don't know who the real electorates are, right? Well, Pence could have just said, actually, I trust these. He could have just not opened the other ones and said, fuck it. But if you wanted to take it a step further, you go, oh, well, we don't know who it is. So we're going to throw it back to the delegation in the House of Representatives. And the House delegation is going to get to vote on who the president gets to be. Now, because the House delegation is split up just by states and not just by representatives, the Republicans have a majority technically in the House, even though the Democrats have more seated members. So the Republicans can declare Trump the president from the House because more individual states are represented in a House delegation when it comes to voting for president. So they could have basically made Donald Trump the president in the House after that. But when he wanted Pence to come through, these were the 2 ways that Eastman was theorizing the election could theoretically be stolen. Theoretically, yeah. Wait, this was actually way too close to working out? Yeah, I said this on election night, seriously, but not realizing how true it was that Pence was what stood between us and oblivion, but in more ways than just refusing to call the election on the night of because Donald Trump didn't want the votes counted. Yeah, Pence could have theoretically just said, oh, yeah, we're not going to count these electorate slates, we're going to count the other ones. In order to delay, they need the consent of both the House and Senate. Pence had no legal authority to delay unilaterally. Are you sure? Let me check. The Eastman memo. Eastman, I think, had a weird theory for why he might be able to do that. Let me check real quick. Oh, so Eastman's theory hinged on the idea that the Electoral Count Act was likely unconstitutional. He believes that this act wouldn't survive a challenge in court. And he's saying, so I think what you just said, I think might be provided in the Electoral Count Act, but Eastman believes that it's not constitutional. And he says, here's the scenario that we propose. One, VP Pence, presiding over the joint session, begins to open and count the ballots, starting with Alabama, without conceding that the procedure specified by the Electoral Count Act, going through the states alphabetically, is required. When he gets to Arizona, that's the first electorate slate that they faked. When he gets to Arizona, he announces that he has multiple slates of electors, and so is going to defer decision on that until finishing the other states. This would be the first break with the procedure set out in the Act, in the Electoral Count Act. At the end, he announces that because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, these are the 7 fake electorate slates that Trump had his cronies send, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. That means the total number of electors appointed, the language of the 12th Amendment, is 454. This reading of the 12th Amendment has also been advanced by Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe. A majority of the electors appointed would therefore be 228. There are, at this point, 232 votes for Trump, 222 for Biden. Pence then gavels President Trump as reelected. So it also relies on an alternative reading of the 12th Amendment to make this work as well, which would also probably have to run through the court. Because I think the 12th Amendment might require a minimum amount of electoral votes, and if nobody gets it, theoretically there's no president or something. I don't remember this exactly. But they were going to read it basically another way. First time the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president. If such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have such a majority, then the persons having the highest number not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, president shall choose immediately by ballot the president. Something like this. Howls, of course, from the Democrats, who now claim, contrary to Tribe's prior position, that 270 is required. So Pence says, fine, pursuant to the 12th Amendment, no candidate has achieved the necessary majority. That sends the matter to the House, where the votes shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. Republicans currently control 26 of the state delegations. The bare majority needed to win that vote. President Trump is reelected there as well. Because in the House, it wasn't just by number of representatives, it was by state delegations. That's important, okay? One last piece, assuming the Electoral Count Act process is followed and upon getting the objections to the Arizona slates, the 2 houses break into their separate chambers, we should not allow the Electoral Count Act constraint on debate to control. That would mean that a prior legislature was determining the rules of the present one, a constitutional no-no, as Tribe has forcibly argued. So someone, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, etc., should demand normal rules, which includes the filibuster. That creates a stalemate that would give the state legislatures more time to weigh in to formally support the alternate slate of electors. That's the fake one, the fake 7 that were given by Donald Trump, if they had not already done so. When you say fake electors, you mean 6 different people pretending to be electors, or they just fake documents? They faked all of it. So the way that it works is in each of the 50 states, after your votes have been counted, the state procedures typically nominate they'll nominate some people to serve as the state electors. And what the electors do is they get together and then they write and they sign a document where they transmit it to NARA and to Congress. And they say, hey, this is how our state voted. Here's where our electoral votes are going. We attest to this under penalty of perjury that we are the duly appointed state electors. And here you go. Donald Trump had 7 different groups of people fake that certification and also transmit their votes to NARA and to Congress in order to cause confusion. That was the goal, basically. Nothing that I'm saying is none of this is like, well, I mean, you could say it's alleged. I mean, it's possible that all of it was faked. But the actual paperwork that the people all perjured themselves signing is all public.
Now,
so wait, who were those
these
people? They were just like private citizens that basically Trump's campaign got together to campaign got them together to just falsely certify that they were the electors that were appointed in their states.
Republicans also prepared forged fake documents that were sent. Just watch this. Tell me if you notice something as I show you these. And that's the fake one on the right. Here also is Wisconsin, where we reported on their forgery last month.
So here on the left, this would have been what Wisconsin transmits to for their electoral vote, and then on the right was the fake one that is signed. Basically, everybody that was involved in this perjured themselves. They said, "We, the undersigned, being the duly elected and qualified electors for president and vice president of the United States of America from the state of Wisconsin, do hereby certify the following." They lied about where they met. That we convened and organized at the state capitol in the city of Madison, Wisconsin. They didn't. A lot of these people were turned away. Fake electors try to get into building. Did the electors know they were lying? Yes. None of this is contested. All of this is just very, nobody. How have I not heard about this before? Because nobody talks about it because nobody knows how our election system works. Nobody knows how our electoral systems work. Nobody has any idea. So how would you even know? How would you begin to understand this? Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea. If I went on a Tim Pool show, I would only argue the elector scheme for 2 hours until he concedes to all of it. And he won't concede to any of it, and I'll just go over the details of this over and over and over and over and over again. How is this not proof of a coup? It is. It is a coup. It's not even... No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not a coup. It is an insurrection because the final point of this coup attempt was a violent march on Washington. That was the final point of this. It was an insurrection, right? This was the legal part that had been satisfied to where they had all of the shit that they needed to have all the paperwork in line. And then the violence on the day of was supposed to pressure everybody in the Capitol building to go ahead and certify the other slates of electors. That's why Donald Trump invited all of his people there. That's why he gave the speech saying, we need to make sure, guys, we need to go here and we need to make sure we have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. We have to show strength. You have to be strong, right? The whole point of him inviting his crowd there, the whole point of them marching to the Capitol building was for them to pressure the congressmen, which is also the phone calls that Trump made when they were all cowering and when he was calling people and when Giuliani was calling people. They were saying, just certify the fake electors. That's what this was. But anyway, yeah, this is a video of some of the fake electors, I believe, trying to...
So you're telling us we can't enter? Yes. Okay, would you say that on the record? What did he say? He said we can't enter.
What I said was, for the Capitol Commission, for the governor's office, for the Speaker of the House, for the Speaker of the Senate, the Capitol is closed unless you have an office here that conducts business today, or if you are taking part in the Electoral College process. Anybody else is not permitted to come in.
They are here to...
These aren't electors. They weren't appointed by the state, and they're all lying when they say this.
Electors are already here. They've been checked in.
They're also electors.
Capitol is closed. All 16 electors that we've been advised by the governor's staff that we're going to be here to vote in the electoral.
Did any of the fake electors get perjury charges? I think that some of them might be roped in the Georgia RICO case. I don't know if they're targeting the fake electors or just the people. I think it was Chesborough or Chesborough or Chessman. What the fuck is the guy's name? I don't know if they went after the... in Arizona they got charged. In multiple states there were charges. Oh, okay. Maybe in some states they have charged him then. Is it Kenneth Chesborough? Did the Supreme Court ruling basically say his involvement in this is considered official duty? Who knows? When Trump was talking to his attorney general, his acting attorney general, Donald Trump told the acting attorney general, he said, you need to send letters to the states, these 7 states, and say, hey, we've got huge evidence of voter fraud. You need to flip your electoral vote. And the acting attorney general, it was either Rosen or Clark, he said, no, we're not going to do that because obviously we have no evidence of this. And Donald Trump said, I'm going to fire you. I'm going to make this coffee dude the attorney general then. And this part is unconfirmed, but apparently half the staff in the White House threatened to quit. Like, this isn't happening. Or almost all of his White House staff threatened to quit out of this. And he's like, okay, fuck it. So he didn't do that. That conversation, though, where Donald Trump is talking to his attorney general about who he can fire and who he can hire, that is a core power of the president, meaning it is exclusively his. And the Supreme Court has ruled that that conversation is granted absolute immunity. Doesn't matter what he said, doesn't matter what it was for, doesn't matter what it was right or wrong. It is above judicial review. It will never, ever, ever be a part of any sort of criminal indictment, and it is beyond being reviewed by any legal body as criminally indictable. So that's completely off the table. Anybody that tells you differently didn't read the decision, or they didn't understand it. Now, the next thing had to do with pressuring Pence to flip the electoral vote. When Donald Trump is talking to Vice President Mike Pence about the electoral process, that is a power that is granted to the President of the United States and the Vice President. However, because the Vice President is serving as the President of the Senate, there's some overlap there between the presidential powers and the congressional powers. But because there's overlap and it's still part of the President's powers, he's given presumptive immunity, meaning the assumption is going to be that he's probably immune unless the government can argue against his immunity in this case. However, that argument against it is a pretrial motion. It's not an affirmative defense that Trump has to use in court. It's something that the prosecution, in this case the state, has to overcome before you can even get to a trial process. It's part of your pretrial motions. So you can you can do a motion to dismiss based on immunity, and the government has to overcome that burden. Nobody knows how yet, because I don't think there was a way given to figure out how that works. So whether or not pressuring Pence counts as an official act or not, we do not know. conversations with state officials to flip their electoral votes. The lower courts haven't done a fact pattern analysis yet, or a fact analysis yet, or even given an argument for if that was official or unofficial. So the Supreme Court remanded that to the lower courts, and they said, figure out, go do the facts, and then come back to us, because the Supreme Court is a court of last review. It is not a court of first review. The Supreme Court will not consider novel facts in front of it. That has to be dealt with by the lower courts first. And then the speech made on January 6th to rally supporters was given the same treatment. There wasn't a fact analysis done on that to determine whether or not it was a core power of the president, like an official act, or if it was an unofficial act. So it was remanded to the lower courts for them to decide that. So two parts of that indictment were remanded to the lower courts for an analysis. A third thing was remanded to the lower courts basically for them to argue against the presumptive immunity. Why shouldn't Trump have immunity there? And the conversation between Trump and his acting attorney general is completely off the table. He's been granted absolute immunity for that. Can you further elaborate to viewers about the need to examine motive and how preventing us from examining motive makes this incredibly difficult? Not yet, because I don't think I've reached that part of the decision yet. I think we're a little bit over halfway done. I'm sure that that's probably brought up by the dissent, but we haven't read the dissent yet. What is the Trump defense about the fake electors? Did they just deny it? They just said they were legal. They don't even talk about it. Nobody even knows how. It's not a question of whether talking to Pence was an official act. It's a question of whether or not granting community would weaken the authorities or function of the executive. I think that the argument, I think that's dealt with in the ruling. I think they say that anything that is going to make a core power criminally indictable would weaken the authority or executive or function of the executive. That's why the exception they give is if Congress has an overlapping power. All of the core presidential powers that are exclusively granted to the president are beyond judicial review, beyond criminal review. That was the novel thing that we got from this Supreme Court case, that all core acts taken by the president as official acts that are part of the core power of the president are beyond criminal review. Nobody is allowed to review those acts in a criminal matter ever. Destiny's hatred for Trump stems from the rebellion against his mom. So pedantic. Okay. Sorry, hold on. I will call these out. Somebody in YouTube chat said judicial, but not congressional. Wrong. Congress can never, ever, ever make somebody criminally liable. Congress can only impeach somebody. Impeachment is a process to remove someone from office. Start and stop. That's it. That's all impeachment can do. Impeachment is not there to criminally prosecute somebody, although for confusing fucking reasons, a lot of the language is the same, and they treat it like a trial, kind of. They use a lot of overlapping language. However, impeachment is only for removing somebody from office. It is not for holding somebody criminally liable. Somebody could impeach you for raping somebody, and you could be convicted in the Senate for rape, but it doesn't matter. There's no the only thing they can do is remove you from office and make it so you can't hold future office. Can you explain to me how separation of powers is related to this? Isn't the executive the branch that charges crimes? How is an executive charging the executive a separation of powers issue? Executives are tasked with carrying out the faithful execution of laws passed by the legislature, Congress, but the judicial branch is who makes people hold to account for their crimes. However, I don't think there's a separation of powers issue here because I don't think it's a separation of powers. I don't believe that the criminal prosecution, I don't believe is a check on anything. I just don't think that, I don't think criminal charges or criminal conviction is thought of as a check on power of any of the branches of government. But my government history is not the best, so maybe, I don't know, maybe it was, even though there's absolutely no writing in any single part of the entire history, in any of the text or any of the history and any of the laws of the United States, because if it was, they would have referenced it at least one time, and they didn't. So there are no references like that, but yeah. Is this shit super complicated, or am I stupid? Everything in law is complicated when you only have one or two pieces. But in my opinion, this is how I felt reading U.S. law. This is how I felt reading international law. The legal system starts off like this. You look at it and you're like, I think it kind of makes sense. And then you dive into it a bit and you're like, this is convoluted and fucking weird as fuck. And then when you get into it more, usually everything makes a lot of sense. Things are set up the way they are for reasons where it's like, oh shit, this is actually, there's a really good argument. Fuck, reading those Federalist Papers yesterday was pretty base. These guys were really smart in their design of government. The United States is not a government that sprung up and happened or didn't evolve out of other systems. The United States was incredibly intentionally put together from start to finish using a historical and contemporary analysis that combined theory and empirical, evidence of how governments have functioned in order to put together a government that not only functioned well, but was adaptable and responsive and dynamic going forward. That's why the United States, I believe, has the oldest surviving constitution, full constitution. Fuck out of here with that Magna Carta bullshit. Full constitution that is the bedrock of a government of any country on the planet today, even though it's a relatively new country. Most of the legal stuff that I've come across, most of it makes sense. Even stuff that I've historically said, God, like, why do we have like strict liability crimes? It's so stupid. Like, even stuff that I thought was generally dumb. Like, once I've gotten a different explanation for it, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that actually makes a lot of fucking sense. I get that. I understand that now. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, generally how it goes. Yeah. Isn't the main distinction the Supreme Court made is between unofficial and official acts? Never in the history of the United States of America, I would argue, with limited historical understanding, but based on the arguments I've seen the Supreme Court put forth, on the little we've read of Thomas, who is going on a schizo ramble right now, and then what I read of the Roberts, who penned the majority opinion, I do not believe that any president in the United States has ever operated with the assumption that he was immune from criminal prosecution. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. That's why I don't think there is a worry that you can make that if you criminally indict a president, that it would lead to the destruction of the country. Because I think presidents have always operated like they were worried about potential criminal indictment. I think that's all. I don't think any president has ever acted or thought that he was above the law. I don't believe that. But I could be wrong.
College, you've been checked in, you're already here.
But these are the rest of the electors.
I understand, but the Capitol is closed, everybody
Sir,
has permission.
come forward.
Captain, the electors are also, the GOP electors are also on the governor's certificate of ascertainment.
I'm not going to get into a political debate. I'm following
It's not a
orders.
political debate.
Okay.
It's the official sealed document. The certificate of ascertainment has
Official sealed document, he's lying. He doesn't have an official sealed document. He has a perjury. None of that is true. He is not duly elected. None of these people are. These are part of Trump's scheme to get a fake set of electors into the Capitol building. The reason why they wanted to go in the building is so that they weren't perjuring themselves as much and so they could cause more confusion, so that they could be more easily confused with the actual appointed electors.
also the GOP electors. They are here. They're trying to do their constitutional duty.
I understand.
And their constitutional duty requires them to be at the Senate chamber today at 2 p.m.
Okay.
They're here.
All right, they're not.
The core powers have always been thought to be non-regulatable by Congress. There is existing precedent for that already with respect to the firing of federal employees. I agree with you, and I think I would agree with that statement. I agree that core powers, constitutional powers granted to the president, are so strong, in fact, that Congress can't even pass laws against those. I would agree with that. That is a good argument, but I don't think anybody's arguing against that. Why the fuck would the legislature have the ability to dictate to the executive things that are granted to it by the Constitution? The Constitution supersedes both of these bodies. However, two things. If Congress wants to change what the president does, that needs to be done through constitutional amendment. You have to change the actual Constitution. And the Constitution, remember, is the original Constitution plus all the amendments. That's constitutional law. All of that is. Okay? However, I don't think that criminal review of criminal actions that are taken by the president count as the legislature or the judicial reviewing executive actions. I believe that those are meaningfully different. So, for instance, if the president pardons somebody and Congress is like, actually, fuck you. We don't want that person pardoned. We think that guy's an asshole. You're not allowed to pardon that person. Fuck you. I think that rightfully in the first court, that would get struck down. You go, sorry, Congress, kick rocks, eat shit. You don't have the ability to limit the power of the president on that. You can't do that. That's his power that's granted by the Constitution. However, if the president goes on live TV and he says, here's my Bitcoin wallet. If I've got $20 million by the end of the day, I'll pardon, XYZ federal criminal. Let's see what happens. Then, he gets some money. Cool, I'm going to go pardon it. And a judge or a prosecutor says, excuse me, sir, you just took a bribe. You can't do that. I don't believe, as it's argued by Roberts, that counts as judicial review of a core power of the president. I don't believe that's to be the case. I think that he's committed a criminal act that is not a core power delegated to the president. A very plain reading of any part of the Constitution, of any of the Federalist Papers, of any part of the framers discussing our Constitution is never going to grant you this idea that the president can commit crimes with his core powers, okay? So if you want to say that he's committed a crime, that's fine. Now, the argument that Roberts and the court is floating is that, well, if you can review these actions criminally, then essentially you basically are reviewing them like in practice, because now now Congress or the judicial can just charge him with a crime or not convict. Charge him with a crime. Basically, the judicial can charge him with a crime every single time they don't like what he does. However, if you want to say that, you can run with that argument, but man, that is a scathing indictment of our federal justice system. So you're saying that all criminal indictments are bullshit? You're saying the grand jury system is bullshit? You're saying that we can't rely on any part of our judicial system to deliver us like fair and decent indictments? Now, Roberts' counter argument to that is maybe they can. However, in the case of the presidency, the office of the presidency is so exceptional and so special that sure, the federal system will work fine for criminal indictments for an ordinary citizen, but for the president, who might be making historically unpopular decisions, do you really want a president who has to make a decision on whether or not he's going to keep this country safe, to have to think whether or not he'll face criminal prosecution for it? The president has a unique role, and he's vested with unique and exclusive power in the Constitution. He's not above the law, but some things should be beyond review because we don't want him second-guessing himself, because the judicial system can put unique pressure on him. Now, the counter, whatever the fuck argument to that I wish I would have seen addressed here is, okay, fine, that is true, that the president might have a unique set of circumstances that make it so that he might have a more difficult time in the criminal system. However, criminal crimes, not civil matters, but crimes are not just an interest between parties. Crimes are a state interest. The state, every individual and the state has an interest in not allowing crimes to happen. And I would argue that for the president, we have an extra special interest, not just in each individual state, but in the United States, in this country, to not have a president committing crimes. So while I agree that there might be undue burden or a potential undue burden on the president, there also should be a higher expectation that this is not a fucking criminal in office. He's not a criminal president. That's also a very high burden. And what I don't like is that all of the citations that we've been given in Roberts' opinion, I'm reiterating this because I haven't got the next two, all of the citations that we've been given are to cases, especially that Fitzgerald case with Nixon, are to cases that talk about how, well, the president shouldn't be liable for court stuff. He shouldn't be liable for court stuff. He shouldn't be liable for court stuff. He should be liable for court what? For civil damages. For civil damages. And the argument that Roberts makes that, well, if he can't be held liable for civil stuff, obviously he can't be held liable for criminal stuff, right? Criminal's even worse than civil. Sure, but there's a much higher burden of proof on criminal stuff. It's not easy to say that one is categorically necessarily worse for the other, depending on your situation. Like I said before, if I was running a business and you were to tell me, okay, Destiny, you just got one wish from a genie lamp. Do you wish to be immune from all criminal prosecution, or do you wish to be immune from all civil litigation? I would say, make me immune from civil litigation. The fuck? I'm not going to be committing crimes. I don't want to murder or rape somebody. I'm not going to do something against the law. But you can make me immune from all civil litigation? I can't be held liable for any damages to any fucking person ever? Bro, you can get sue people for that shit any day of the fuck. Anybody can be a plaintiff in a fucking civil case. Fuck that shit. Hell yeah. And you only need 51% to win those cases. So hell yeah, make me immune from civil litigation. Do I need to be immune from criminal matters? No, there's a much higher burden there. It's harder to get an indictment. It's much harder to get a conviction. Criminal stuff is separate. I don't like the conflation between the criminal and the civil stuff. But That's just my uneducated opinion so far. Heel Shit Podcast, thank you for the 5 subs. Isn't this the first criminal case against a president ever? Yes, there's one argument that's commonly floated about that, but there is a counter argument that I've never heard floated. So one side of the aisle will say, this is the first criminal case ever, okay? Imagine how horrible it would be if everybody started doing criminal cases against presidents. That's one argument that you could float. However, I feel like I could just as easily give the counter, hold on. This might be the first president that's overtly committed criminal acts because presidents have operated under the assumption that if they do this, they will be held criminally liable. Imagine a future where presidents now think they can't be. Like, if you were to go back historically and poll the presidents, hey, just curious, if you committed a criminal act as part of, like, being the president, do you think you could be, like, charged with a crime in the United States? Most of them would probably say, in, like, most cases, yeah, probably. Maybe not, like, for actions taken as, like, commander-in-chief or, like, wartime stuff. Maybe there might be some exception. But for the most part, they'd probably say, like, yeah. Otherwise, my assumption would be, why the fuck would Nixon resign? Like, who cares? Make sure that the people you're ordering to fuck around are just like people that are in the executive, and yeah, you're just having conversations with them about shit that they, could be doing anyway, right? Well, I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what the fuck Watergate was. What was it? Just like putting cameras or stealing shit from like the offices of political opponents? Just tell the FBI to do it. The FBI literally exists under you. It's an office authorized by Congress. You're allowed to fill it. You're allowed to staff it. You nominate the head. Like, just talk to the head of the FBI and say, go investigate that and go fuck them up. That's part of your core powers as president. You can't be held criminally liable for whatever you talk to the FBI about, and you're above criminal review. You're above criminal review there. Maybe somebody in the FBI, gets fucked. Maybe get impeached. You can't be fucking charged with a crime. I think Nixon, though, thought he could be charged with a crime because Ford pardoned him, which some would argue is an implicit admission of a crime. No, I've never settled that. I haven't read into that, but I admire how much of an institutional simp Destiny is. EMAD, if it wasn't for our institutions, you wouldn't fucking exist. The whole internet that you use, okay, has come from the institution of our defense industry operating as a coherent entity and investing in new research and technologies. Literally no part of your life, okay, would exist right now without the institutions of this great country. Eat shit and die, okay? Another off topic, I want to make sure Dan doesn't buy shielded XLR cables for fixing the buzzing problem on one mic. We can go into detail, but it's a big scam in the audio world. Okay.